Hey, this is Joe from the Recording Revolution. This video is for you if you are at the very beginning of your journey and you're just curious about this whole home recording studio thing. You're probably a musician, you probably have friends that are doing some recording at home, or maybe you've seen it on social media and you wonder, that looks really fun. Is it fun? Is it achievable for somebody like me? And if I wanted to get into it, where would I start? As you can imagine, I can't teach you everything you need to know about this wonderful world of music production in a single YouTube video, but my goal for this video is to give you a good idea of what to expect and to give you some very specific concrete steps to take next. So help you figure out what pieces of gear you need and what you don't need, and some ways to think about the process of recording and what that will look like for you to help you better make a decision if you want to get into home recording or if you want to maybe go get into woodworking instead. All right, let's dive in. The first piece of the puzzle is, of course, equipment. What gear do you need to get started? There's lots of gear out there. You could spend the rest of your life researching equipment. I don't want you to do that. I want you to get rolling and start making some music, because you're going to discover that it's amazing and fun, and I want you to get there as soon as possible. So there are really only 5 pieces of equipment that you need, 5 necessities to get started making music in a home studio. And then you can add to that as much as you want down the road, but you need these 5 in place to get started. The first is a computer. Obviously, you need a computer. You probably have a computer. It's plenty good enough to get rolling with recording. The second thing you need is something called an audio interface. So an audio interface is a little box usually that has USB connection. So it connects to your computer via USB, Thunderbolt, something like that. And then this is the interface that allows you to plug things like microphones and headphones and speakers into your computer. Yes, your computer probably has a headphone jack. That's not meant for what we're talking about here. And if your computer has a built-in microphone, that's not what you want to use for recording. You want to be able to plug in something like this into your system to record. So you need an audio interface to do that. The good news is you can get one of those for $100-$200. Like there are inexpensive versions that sound great, and you can get started right away. Third thing you need is recording software. There needs to be some piece of software that you're recording into. There are lots of options. If you choose the right interface, it'll come with software, so you don't have to buy anything else. I'll tell you more about that in a second. The fourth thing you need is a microphone. Now, perhaps you're only making instrumental music and you never plan to record with a microphone. Most people, it would behoove you to have at least one microphone in your arsenal. And the good news is microphones are cheap and they can sound great. This one right here, I think, is $129, and it sounds fantastic. Are there $5,000 mics that sound super great? Sure, but you're just getting into this. You can get that $5,000 mic later. And the fifth thing that you need is a set of headphones. Something like your Apple earbuds aren't quite what you need. You need a proper set of headphones that goes over the ears, can block out the sound of the world around you so you can hear what's happening. But the good news is those aren't terribly expensive either. Now, I could go on and on about those and give you specific recommendations, but I've actually already done that inside of this. So this is a guide that I created. It's 100% free, called 5 Home Studio Necessities. And it walks you through these 5 necessities, and it gives you specific examples of specific pieces of equipment that I would recommend. For example, here's some of the interfaces that I think you should get. You can download this for free. There's links in there to everything that I talk about, and you can literally put together your list of your starter home studio from this guide. But then there's also, in addition to the 5 necessities, there's also 5 nice to haves, right? So once you get the necessities in place, you might want things like speakers. You might want things like some sort of a keyboard controller to play keyboard. We don't have to dive into that. I dive into that all inside of this guide, which you can have for free. Just go to recordingrevolution.com/gear, Gear. Enter your email address, and I'll send you a free copy of this so you can know exactly what you need. So now you've got your gear in place. So what exactly goes into recording a song? Well, there are 2, this is an oversimplification, but there are 2 ways to record a song. One is to record it live, meaning you play your instrument and sing, or maybe there's a band and everyone's playing and singing and performing the whole thing in one take live. And the other way is to multi-track or to overdub the parts. Let's talk about the live one first. Now, when I say live, I don't necessarily mean a live concert, right? Like a live recording at a concert venue. I just mean if it's you and your band, you're all playing and singing and doing everything at the same time. It's all happening live. Or if it's just you, it's you and your guitar, but you're playing and singing at the same time and capturing that performance. It's a wonderful way to work because it's very fast. If you perform it well, you're done in 5 minutes, right? The song is now recorded. The downsides of it are you don't have a lot of control after the fact. So if you made a mistake on the guitar, there's not really an easy way to fix that or punch that in. You just kind of have to live with it, or you have to keep recording the whole thing over and over and over again until you get it right. That might be the perfect way to go, and you might say that's the one I want to do, or you might opt for something that gives you a little more flexibility and take some of the pressure off of that live performance thing, which is the multi-track or overdub approach. The overdub approach is the more common of the two. Some folks like myself, if I'm doing a full band thing, I might do live recording of me on guitar, my drummer, and my bass player. We might all play at the same time, so that all gets recorded at once, and then I will overdub over those tracks, meaning I'll add more guitars and vocals and percussion and other stuff. Because we're talking about multi-track recording, which means I'm not just recording everything down to a single audio file. I'm recording this microphone goes on its own track. My guitar microphone goes on its own track. The different microphones on the drum kit, they each go on their own track. The bass player, his goes on a track by itself. So I can hear all of them individually, but that also means I can add more tracks after the fact, and I can sing into my microphone while listening to the stuff that I recorded before. That's what an overdub is. So this overdub approach to recording is really handy because it takes a lot of the pressure off of the musicians to have to do everything at once and to do it perfectly. With an overdub session, I could play the guitar part and only think about guitar without having to think about singing. And if I make a mistake, I can go back and what we call do a punch in, where I record over that mistake spot, and I only have to record that spot, not the entire song again, because the software lets me blend between those two different takes, and it sounds like one full performance. It's kind of magical, and it's amazing, and it's a wonderful piece of technology to have. But aside from all of the cool wow factor, it means that I, as a musician, can relax a little bit. I can record my guitar part a few times. I can piece together bits from each take if I want to make the perfect take, and there's not all that pressure for me to play it perfectly from downbeat to final chord. Another big benefit of the overdub approach is I end up getting a vocal track that only has my vocal on it. Since I'm not playing my guitar and singing, the microphone isn't picking up my voice and also the guitar. This gives me more control down the road to really make that vocal sound as good as possible without bleed from the guitar getting picked up by the microphone. There are downsides to the overdub approach. The first being it just takes longer, right? We're having to record each musician individually versus everyone together, so that's necessarily going to take a longer time. The second thing is, with great technology comes the temptation to just record as much as possible in an attempt to make everything perfect. I'll spare you the heartache. You'll never get it perfect, and if anything, the more you try to make it perfect, the worse the final outcome is. Sometimes it's great to just capture a performance, even if it's got some problems here and there. You get a better overall performance than if you were to surgically go in and record everything as perfectly as possible. So with a live recording, you don't have the ability to do that, to waste all that time. With an overdub recording, you do. So it's important just to remember to stay the course and try to just record it, have it sound good, and then move on to the next thing. Try not to be obsessed about making one little piece of the pie perfect, because A, it'll never be perfect, and B, perfect doesn't sound that good anyway. And finally, if this is the only video you ever watch from me, if I could give you one piece of advice about getting into the world of learning to record your own music and then eventually learning to mix your own music, which is the next step of the process, I would tell you this. There is a single rule of this entire process that will make your life so much better if you follow it. And that rule is this: get it right at the source. So there's this pesky thing that comes up when you get into recording. You'll record something and you'll listen back to it and say, it sounds okay. I can probably fix it later with software. That's the temptation, because software is amazing and there are a lot of things software can do, but you will never get as good a result with fixing a bad thing in software than if you fixed it on the front end by recording it again, or practicing and then recording it again, or moving the microphone to a better position that sounds better and recording it again. It's more work on the front end, but a lot of people like to skip straight to the software part and think, if I only become a software ninja, I will solve all my problems. No. Here's the game that I would play if I were you. A challenge that you give yourself with each recording session. The game is, how great can I make this sound with just the raw tracks themselves before I add any plugins, any extra software bits and pieces and cool stuff? Can I make it sound incredible just with the tracks that I record on recording day? If you faithfully stick to that, you'll be more frustrated in the beginning because you'll have to do things over until they sound good. Not perfect, just good. But then the rest of the process will be so much more fun and you'll get a much better result because you're starting from a good place. It's kind of like if you want to cook a really good meal, you got to start with really good ingredients. You can't start with crappy ingredients and then expect all the seasoning to make up for it. Ideally, you have great ingredients with great seasoning, gives you a great meal. In the recording studio, great tracks plus learning what to do with those tracks in the software as far as editing, mixing, mastering, all of that, then you get a great result. But if any one of those pieces is subpar, you're going to have subpar results and you'll be frustrated. So this is something that I intuitively got when I was a 15-year-old first learning how to record, because I didn't even know you could fix anything with software. So my entire existence was to record this guitar part until it sounded right, versus record a crappy version and then try to fix it later. Down the road, as I became more sophisticated, got an audio degree, I thought, well, shoot, I'll just slap something together in the recording session and then I can go fix it with all my fancy plugins later. Doesn't work well, and it's not nearly as fun as getting a great sounding recording that moves you emotionally when it's just in its rawest, purest form. Thanks for watching this far. I have been making videos like this since 2009, so here on the Recording Revolution more recently, and then also on Home Studio Corner, which is my other YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe to both. There is so much free training there that will start to fill in the gaps that you'll find as you start your journey towards making music. But let me just say this, it is worth it. As anything worth doing is going to take some effort, will have a learning curve. I promise you, if you can power through and get to the point where you're starting to record and make music, it is one of the most fun and satisfying things that you can do. Stick with it. I'll be here to help you along the way. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.